Happy Sunday and welcome into the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock Show. We're here to get you ready for today's Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, which, by the way, if you're playing over on FanDuel today, lock is in 30 minutes from now. So you got to get those lineups in over at FanDuel. I know I got my live set a little bit earlier. Lock is at 3 o'clock Eastern time over on DraftKings. So just under an hour from now. Green flag will be at 3:03 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to break this slate down for you. Of course, as always, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. We'll talk about some of those props over at Prize Picks later on in the show. Of course, you see it right there at the top of the screen. If you sign up today over there at Prize Picks, they've got an instant first match deposit up to $100. Of course, you got to use that promo code AWESEMO. As always, here on the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock Show, I'm joined by Chris Pennell. Chris, great to be talking here on a Sunday afternoon. I think it was like it's morning, afternoon. It's afternoon over here, here in Florida, man. How's it going, man?
Doing well, Jason. Looking forward to a good show today. Road courses usually pretty boring, but for DFS purposes, haven't been too bad this year. So hopefully those trends continue. I'm looking forward to the show today.
Yeah, as we talk about, starting to kind of break down this race with roster and construction, every week you hear me talking about the top driver tool we have over Stokastic.com. If you're a Stokastic Plus member, you got access to that top driver tool. And generally for a lot of weeks, you sit here and we're looking at who are going to be dominators. But because of this style of race, dominators it's not even a part of my thought process today.
Right. Like it's nice if you have the main lap leader in your lineup and they finish well, like that's an added benefit, but I am only rostering drivers based off of if I think they have enough place differential to pay off or if they have high finishing position potential. Like, yes, Tyler Reddick on the pole today, we typically like pole setters to lead a lot of laps, but we're talking about stage one being 15 laps. Road courses always have different drivers taking different strategies, going for stage points. So there's no guarantee he even leads those 15 laps. And we're talking less than 60 total dominator points today. So yeah, don't really care about the dom points. If they come with my drivers, I will take it, but I'm definitely not hunting it.
And we should note that two drivers are going to the rear, Eric Almirola and also Cody Ware. Let's be honest about Cody Ware. Probably not going to be someone, Eric Almirola. He was scheduled to start 14th, and today is a race about finishing position, so he's going to have to make his way through here. And I know road races aren't exactly your favorite cup of tea.
No, there certainly aren't. But the thing is, though, for DFS, since the passing has been pretty difficult and there hasn't been a ton of wrecks, they have been a bit projectable because a lot of these drivers we see starting closer to the front happen to either stay up there, and the only guys that are making passes are the fastest cars we've seen in practice over the weekend that just happened to qualify poorly. And we have a decent sample size of races at road courses this year that we can put into this race when projecting how it's going to play out. So while it's boring, I don't mind it for fantasy.
Mentioned this question from Dan, kind of that conversation we were just having about dominators, where he said, would you go as long as not having any dominators in your lineup? For me, I'm just not like you said, if it happens to get that, let's just say it's Chase Elliott, we'll talk about Chase here in a moment, and he gets those dominator points, great. But it's like, I'm not seeking it.
Right. And that's exactly how my viewpoint is. Like, if I get Tyler Reddick filtered in my lineups, I'm not even necessarily playing him because I think he's going to dominate. I'm playing him because I would be picking him to win the race or something like that. Or a guy like Christopher Bell, Austin Cindric, you're playing them as race winners, not really dominators. Because if they're going to dominate, I mean, like I said, less than 60 total dominator points, and they're not going to lead the entire race. There's just too many other things that are going to happen. So maybe at best you get 20 laps led out of somebody. So again, not really something that's too important for my lineup building process this weekend.
But when we get into more of our listener questions, we've already got a F, Marry, Kill question coming in on the score with three drivers for a single entry. We'll talk about Mr. Moneybags. We'll get to your question here a little bit later on in the show. That gave me a little bit of a chuckle there. But, of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. That truly does help us a lot as well. Of course, subscribe to Stokastic right here on YouTube so you stay up to date with everything that we got going on over here at Stokastic.com. Of course, right before us was MLB Live Before Lock. Of course, so we got the MLB coverage here each and every day here at Stokastic.com. Of course, me and Chris are here on Sundays for the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock show. So let's get into the upper tier drivers here. These will be drivers who are 9K and above over on DraftKings. So first off, let's start off with Chase Elliott. He is starting 8th today, 10,600 on DraftKings, 14,000 on FanDuel.
Yes, normally if it's a road course, I'm always going to have a ton of interest in Chase Elliott. The problem is the next two drivers we're going to talk about are going to carry a ton of ownership today, and they're in excellent spots as well. And like we said, we don't really care too much about the dominator points, and I feel like they have similar finishing position upside to Chase Elliott. So that's kind of what's drawing me away from him a little bit. I don't think he's necessarily a bad play today. It's still Chase Elliott, a road course top two, and basically every loop data statistic at road courses so far this year. But starting in P8, just doesn't have quite the place differential upside. Do I think he can win? Certainly. It's Chase Elliott, a road course, but for me, going to be a little bit lower owned than he normally is for me at a road course.
You mentioned about the next two drivers who are going to be very popular today. First up, we got Ross Chastain, who's starting 21st, 10-4 on DraftKings, 13,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Ross is basically the best play in the slate. Him and Kyle Larson are quite close together, starting 21st and 22nd, but Ross has been the fastest car at road courses this year. He's been in the top 7 each and every single time. Also has a win at Coda earlier in the season. He was fast in practice. The Trackhouse cars, like I said, I think they're cheating, but I want the cheaters in my lineup. So we had the cheaters last week with Toyota. You were on DraftKings, that didn't matter. So I'm fine with getting cheaters in my lineup. So Ross Chastain and all the Trackhouse cars, come on down and be in my lineup. I don't have a problem with that at all.
I was telling Chris before the show when all that news came down right after the race last week, I'm going into the, I was like, oh, I need to go into the rules and regs of DraftKings because I had some head-to-head lineups that if magically those got, put to zero, I wasn't winning money.
You were on FanDuel, you got burned in DFS with it. That is for sure. But DraftKings, you're always safe with that, just for future reference.
Yeah. You mentioned about Kyle Larson here. He is starting 22nd, 10-2 on DK, 13-5 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Kyle Larson's pretty much the same exact play as Ross Chastain. I will be pairing them both together in a majority of my lineups today. If you're playing cash games, I'd highly recommend fitting them both together. But the two highest projected, just raw points-wise, drivers in the slate starting in the mid to low 20s here. And I mean, they have top 5 upside. These are two of the better drivers at road courses. And I also want to mention, just found out it is Kyle Larson's 30th birthday today. So if we're looking for a narrative, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah. I mean, when you look over at our top driver tool, no matter whether you're looking at DraftKings or FanDuel, both of these guys, Chastain and Larson, are popping off, especially, in that top 6%, also in that top 5%. They're by far the two drivers that are popping off the most, over at Stokastic.com in terms of large field GPPs. What is too much when it comes to both these guys?
So I'm crunching right now over on DK, and I'm currently getting about to the mid upper 40s. And as far as the 150 max spread goes, I was trying to get that closer to 50 on Ross Chastain. But if we see them coming in around the upper 30s as far as ownership or lower 40s, I want to be overweight. I think this is a good chalk today. And there's a lot of other chalk or higher on drivers that have PD upside that I think are kind of traps today, which we will talk about later on. But I feel like this is the good chalk. These are fast cars, fast road courses. They just happen to have a bad qualifying run, but they should be able to overcome that.
I think that trap play, we already know who you're I know who you're going to talk about. It was checked out your content this week. Teaser, it's Eric Jones. Yeah. So, we'll talk about Eric Jones here in a little bit. Next up, we got the man on the pole. That is Tyler Reddick, a even 10K over on DraftKings, 12-5 on FanDuel.
Yeah, he's a bit expensive, but he did obviously do well on Saturday, got on the pole. He's our most recent winner at a road course, tied for the best odds to win this race over in Vegas with Austin Cindric, at least the last time that I looked. The problem is he's very expensive, and there is no room for error staying on the pole at a road course because, like I said, this is only an 82-lap race, and there's no guarantee Tyler Reddick dominates half the race. And even if you do dominate half the race, that's still not that many dominator points. You still got to finish in the top 5, and there's a lot of things that can happen at a road course as far as strategy is concerned. And if he does lose that lead, lose that clean air, well, we don't really know how good his car is going to be in traffic. So I'm not super high on Tyler Reddick. I'm probably going to come in a little bit lower into the field just to get more exposure to guys like Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson. Not saying he's a bad play, GPP only, but it's just kind of tough to get there at that price point.
Then you got Kyle Busch, who is starting 10th, 9,800 on DraftKings, 10,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, so I think it's finally time we can start the Toyota slander here, but I just don't really like the JGR cars outside of Christopher Bell today. I mean, they just really haven't shown the speed that we wanted to see from them at road courses. I mean, the first road course race, I fell in the trap because we didn't know how bad Toyota was going to be at the road courses this year, but they just don't have the speed. Busch wasn't bad in practice, was P10 and then qualified P10, but I don't think he's going to have that top 5 upside you need at his price point.
Then we have Daniel Swore. Excuse me. No, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here. Now we have Martin Truex Jr., a little bit of Toyota smear here. He's starting 25th, 9,600 DraftKings, 9,200 on FanDuel.
I know we don't like them, but we still got to talk about him. Martin Truex Jr., he's cheap on both sites for who he is, and he's a good road course racer in the past. But like I said, this year, Titus doesn't really have quite the speed. Out of all the JGR cars, though, he hasn't been awful. Does have a couple top 15s mixed in there, but speed-wise, he's sitting right around P17, P18th at the 3 races we've been at these kind of tracks so far this year. But starting in 25th, it makes him viable. And on FanDuel, I am getting to him a little bit more just because of that really cheap price point. But I do think he could be a guy that goes a bit over-owned today because of where he's starting. And I would much rather roster the driver that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, there are 2 drivers on the FanDuel slate that I highlighted their salaries. One of them is Martin Truex Jr. because when you look at this upper tier, he's the cheapest of those drivers over on FanDuel. The other one we're going to talk about a little bit later is AJ Allmendinger,
right,
who is 11,000 over on FanDuel, and everyone else in that mid tier is nowhere near his salary on FanDuel. So we'll talk about that there in a little bit. Then we got Daniel Suarez. He's starting 11, 9,400 DraftKings, 12,000 on FanDuel. Mention this question that came in relation to Daniel Suarez from Jay Lopez saying thoughts on having both Ross and Suarez together.
Yeah, I did that. I did that one of my 3 max lineups, specifically kind of going for a track house stack there. I mean, they've been the 2 fastest car at the road course this year. And like I said, I think they're cheating. They haven't gotten caught yet, but I want the cheaters in my lineups. And Suarez won at Sonoma earlier in the season, finished 5th at Road America, was leading early on at Coda, had an issue where it was poor strategy, I believe, if I remember correctly. They just couldn't really get through the field in traffic, but he's had a fast car this year, finished 3rd after the disqualifications last week. I don't see a reason not to like him. I'm hoping the elevated price tag keeps people away from him, but I think it's a fair price point. I mean, Suarez has been one of the best drivers at the road courses this year.
I'll mention this FanDuel question that we got in here from David, since FanDuel is locking here in just about 15 minutes from now. FanDuel GPP, Larson and Bowman, or Chastain and Dinger?
I'm going to have to go with the Chastain and Dinger route. I think that's going to be the faster cars of the 2. Bowman is a good play, yes, starting 28th, but he just didn't show quite the speed as AJ Allmendinger. And Allmendinger, well, I know the finishes haven't exactly been there. He's still on a fast car. There's a lot of issues this year. And Ross is overall my favorite play in the slate, so slightly into that.
And Bowman is a popular play today on both slates, too. Just kind of throw that one out there. Now we have Ryan Blaney, who's starting 6th. He's 9,200 on DraftKings, 10,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Ryan Blaney's interesting in a GPP format because, we keep saying it, but he has to get a win. I mean, maybe we don't get repeat winners. He doesn't have to win, but he needs to be in that mindset that he does have to win here. Because if we get a couple of new ones, yes, he's sitting quite nicely in points. It's either 3rd or 4th now. I can't remember, but it's near the very top. But he is not safe. He does not have a win. Him and Martin Truex Jr. And, a road course, we could see a new winner here. That's definitely in the cards. It's in the realm of possibility. So Blaney's going to have to be on a winning strategy today, but the Penske cars were fast over the weekend. Blaney was P3 in practice. Austin Cindric, his teammate, was P1. Joey didn't show quite the speed, but he qualified well. And I mean, I think Blaney's an interesting target in tournaments because he has the mindset he needs to win. He's going to be on the right strategy, not going for stage points. So I think he's worth a look in tournaments.
Then we have Austin Cindric. He's on the front row starting 2nd, 9,100 on DraftKings, 11,500 on FanDuel.
So the only concern with Cindric is that he could be points racing during this race, but I do think he has legit race winning upside. And if he is winning, if he does have the speed, he's able to get up front. I think they can go for the win here. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. But in tournaments, I did write him up. I think he is a decent tournament target if he's not going to go points racing. I think he's got legit speed to do it. I mean, he was P1 in practice. I was kind of hoping he got into the pole, so he's going to have to beat out Tyler Reddick early on, but I think he's certainly capable of doing that. So I'll get to a little bit of Cindric in tournaments. Him and Ryan Blaney are very close in my own personal exposures.
This is the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock show as we are getting you ready for today's Verizon 200 at the Brickyard. And when you want to get access to all the great premium tools and data we have over at Stokastic.com, you got to sign up for a Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass. And right now, if you're a new user of Stokastic.com, we have got a special offer for you as you can save 50% off your first week of any weekly Stokastic Plus Pass. All you got to do is use that promo code NASCAR LBL, all caps one word, NASCAR LBL, for 50% off your first week of any Stokastic Plus weekly pass. Of course, this is for new users only. And just to kind of give you a little insight of what you can get over Well, say you want to get that NASCAR weekly pass, that top driver tool. You look at someone like, I'll just say Chase Elliott here. We have him at 34.5% of being in the top 6 on DraftKings. So that's one of those great tools. Typically when I'm looking at top driver tool, I am looking at that dominator column, but it's on my sheet, but it's just a reference point more than anything else. Look, who knows? Maybe one of these drivers goes out there and just leads the majority of this race. And then maybe you do need that driver in your lineup to be optimal, but it's just something we're not looking at. So to me, it's, on the DraftKings side of the equation, looking at that top 6%, on the FanDuel, looking at that top 5%, which Larson and Chastain are just popping off in terms of that one. So let's move on to the mid-tier drivers. We'll start with Denny Hamlin. He's starting 15th, 8,900 DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel.
He just kind of falls in the same category as his other teammates, Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr., where just hasn't really been that impressive at road courses. Like Kyle Busch hasn't finished better than, I believe, 27th of the road course this year. Denny Hamlin, looking his finishes 17th, 31st, 18th. He's cheap for Denny Hamlin, but I think it's kind of where he should be. And I'm hoping some people just kind of chase a cheap Denny Hamlin, but I don't really think he's that cheap relative to where he should be on a road course. So not a big fan.
With FanDuel locking here in just about 13 minutes from now, if I do see a FanDuel question come up in the chat, I'll try to get those in. Like one here from James Perkins, single entry on FanDuel value play.
So value on FanDuel is a little bit different from DK. So value on FanDuel, you don't typically have to get to those guys like Haley, Stenhouse, Ty Dillon. So for me, a cheap guy I'm getting to a lot of, it's a lot of Michael McDowell, a lot of Chris Buescher, a lot of Kevin Harvick. The one I have the most of currently, I believe, is Chris Buescher over on FanDuel, but all three are great plays.
Next up, we got William Byron. He is starting 23rd, 8,700 on DraftKings, 9,000 on FanDuel.
So William Byron's hauler caught on fire. I'm not sure if you saw any videos of that over on Twitter this weekend, but the truck that they bring the car in, it actually caught on fire. So I'm not sure if that's a bad omen for William Byron this weekend or not. I'm trying to figure that out. It might mean he's really fast. I'm not sure. It didn't show up in practice. P25 in the 1 lap, P20 in the 5 lap, but he's a good road course racer. I like him, but I do think there's some decent pivots. His ownership's going to be kind of up there, so he's not someone I'm really trying to go overweight on, but pretty close to even to the field.
Christopher Bell, he's starting 4th, 8,600 DraftKings, 8,000 on FanDuel. I know this is actually one of the Toyotas that you do have interest in today.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd really have any interest in any of them heading into the weekend, but Bell did show some speed. He must have found something in the setup, P5 in the 1 lap, and then P1 in the 5 and 10 lap runs in practice. And he's a good road course racer, so it is nice to see one of these guys at least show up a little bit, qualified P4, decent odds to win the race in Vegas. $8,600. He's a pretty similar play to guys like Chase Briscoe, who I think we skipped over Chase Briscoe now that I'm looking at it, so we can maybe bring him up next. And then guys like Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, he's kind of in the same boat there, but I do like his price point quite a bit. So he's a fine tournament target.
Kevin Harvick is starting 18th today. He's 8,400 on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Harvick's a good play on both sites. He's basically free over on FanDuel, $7,500. You just want to load him up. I got no problem with that. He's got top 10 upside. He's been great at the road courses this year. Was fine in practice. And over on DraftKings, I think he's a decent pivot. He's not going to be as high owned as guys like William Byron or Adrian Allmendinger. So if you're trying to get off the chalk there and get a very similar play, Kevin Harvick's right there, and he's been very good at the road courses. So definitely like him a lot in tournaments.
AJ Allmendinger starting 20th, 8,200 on DraftKings, 11,000 on FanDuel. I guess for our FanDuel players out there, do you want to play 11,000 AJ Allmendinger?
Yeah, I was wondering how much exposure I would get to him when crunching, but I actually have a lot of AJ Allmendinger. He's still one of my highest owned drivers over on Fan. I just did my crunch and uploaded it, and I believe he was top 5 in my exposure. So I like him a lot today. I know his finishes haven't exactly been great at road courses, but each and every single race he's had an issue, either a pit penalty, power steering issues, or just wrecking at the end when he should have won the race. He won the Indy road course last year. He won this race yesterday if you're watching Xfinity. So he knows the track quite well. Free play over on DK. He's going to be one of the highest owned drivers on the slate there, play him in cash games. FanDuel, I mean, I know he's a little bit more expensive, but I'm just going to load up on AJ today and hope that road course prowess just continues to show for him.
True story over here. I suck at doing crunches, at hosting the show and trying to get those in my CSVs in before the show. I got to get it in before, that's one of the things that's kind of good about NASCAR sometimes, because we have a little bit of that wiggle room. So I can work on my CSVs after the show is over. But when you're hosting a show, I can't do it. I got to get it done before the show.
Can you imagine the guys doing NBA live before lock? That just sounds like You have to be so talented to do that. I could not.
No, MLB is worse.
Oh yeah, that too.
Because you got changing lineups coming in.
Right.
You know, at least NBA, like for the most part, you pretty much know who's
Right.
playing.
Oh yeah.
MLB, like I'm literally like when I play, I don't know how you are with MLB DFS. I'm literally submitting my CSV as late as possible.
Oh yeah, and even after lock, I mean, they'll change the lineup and you got to completely redo it. It's just a mess. So we're kind of spoiled with NASCAR, so we probably shouldn't complain too much.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, like that's why on MLB, like the slates of MLB I love to play are when at lock we have every single lineup in, and so it just okay, cool, lineups are in. I don't got to worry about this.
Exactly.
NBA's man, then I'm doing late swaps, and yeah, I'm up. You know, I'm waiting for I'm watching Sacramento Kings basketball on a league pass.
It's painful. It really is.
Underrated broadcast team, by the way. They actually have a good broadcast team. They're one of the few that I actually enjoy watching. Let's move on to the next driver. It'll be Joey Logano. He is starting 5th today. He's 8,000 on DraftKings, 8,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, very cheap on both sites. This is probably the cheapest I've seen Joey Logano, especially all year, but maybe the past few seasons. But just hasn't really been good at the road courses. His crew chief did say they're trying a new thing this weekend, and I guess it showed up in qualifying, didn't really show up in practice, but his Penske teammates were great, Cindric and Ryan Blaney, so I can't imagine Logano is going to be too far off. So if you're looking for a cheap tournament play, I mean, being priced right by guys like Bowman, Buescher, Dinger, Harvick, and Byron, I mean, you just can't get to that much Joey Logano, so he's going to be overlooked, but I mean, starting the top 5, maybe it's been tough to pass at road courses, there's top 8 potential there.
Next 2 drivers are both drivers that are going to be chalky plays here today. First up, you got Alex Bowman, who is starting 28th, 7,800 on DraftKings, 8,800 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Bowman's a fine cash play today in tournaments. I'm not going to try to go overboard. I ended up getting only one Alex Bowman lineup in my 3 max on DraftKings, which I felt pretty good about. I think most people will go 1 to 2. So I wanted to be on the lower end there because there's many other pivots, like the 2 drivers right below him. But he's been good at the road courses this year, typically a top 15 guys in a Hendrick car below 8K. He deserves the high ownership, but didn't really show me a ton of speed in practice, which is really the only thing throwing me off.
Next up, you got Chris Buescher, who is starting 16th. He is 7,500 on DraftKings, 7,800 over on FanDuel.
Yeah, Buescher has been great at the road courses this year. He's cheap on both sides, one of my higher owned drivers, actually on both sites here. Excellent tournament play. Not going to go there in cash games, but average running position of 10th place at the road courses, average finish inside the top 10. He's always been solid at road courses too. The past 10 races, I believe 9 times he's been inside the top 20, and a lot of those were top 15s as well. Finishes of 6th and 2nd the past 2 road courses. So I definitely like Buescher starting in 16th. You get a little bit of PD upside mixed in there, and obviously high finishing position potential as well.
Michael McDowell is starting 7th today, 7,300 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel. I feel like a broken record every week on Michael McDowell. Like you just sit there and you're like, he's not projecting well. Then all of a sudden it's like every week, 30 plus points.
I guess he was cheating too, because he did get busted last weekend. He got the penalty, but as we say, give us the cheaters. And now I'm not sure how fast they're going to be this week, but I don't think it's going to concern them too much. They still put up a top 10 in qualifying, so it still seems like they're going to have speed. And he's basically been the same exact guy as Chris Buescher at road courses. And I just talked about Chris Buescher, so I got to like Michael McDowell. He's starting about 8 spots. He's starting 7th compared to 16th. So obviously the starting spot's a little bit tougher, but that makes him a better play in tournaments.
Now we got Eric Jones, who's starting 35th, 7,100 on DraftKings, 6,500 on FanDuel. And this is kind of a trap play here.
Yeah, Eric Jones has just been so slow at the road courses. I mean, $7,100 is cheap, $6,500 on FanDuel is cheap, and starting in 35th, people are going to want to play him, but he was P35 in practice, and he was just slow, and he's been slow at the past 2 road courses, 26th at Road America and 22nd at Sonoma. And I will tell you what, 22nd, he was very lucky to get that. That was the guy that was running around like P28 to P32 all day, and then like 7 guys pit. So he got lucky and gained spots because he didn't have to. And looking at green flag speed this year, he's sitting right around 28th place. Like, this is not a guy that's been fast at road courses. He's fast at other tracks where there's more speed needed. He was obviously very fast last weekend. It was a great play. But starting in 35th, I'd much rather play McDowell in 7th. I'd much rather play Buescher in 16th. So I'll happily be underexposed to Eric Jones today.
Ty Gibbs, we do have him on this slate here today. Of course, filling in once again. He is starting 26, 7,000 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel. We talked about it last week. Even though he wasn't, being able to be rostered, we were like, hey, this is probably something to pay attention to going forward. Of course, 7 days later, we do have him on the slate. And as Kevin asked, he says, is Gibbs an underrated play?
I think he might be an overrated play today. It's just one of those Toyotas where I don't really like him at road courses, and he's still a young guy. He's obviously great at road course in the Xfinity Series, has multiple wins at them. Not denying the talent, but this is still a 19-year-old making his first Cup start in the next gen car at a road course, and he wasn't fast in practice. It was P30 in the one lap. It looked like he was struggling in the heavy braking zones, which is obviously going to be a cause of concern here for this race. And his odds fluctuated quite a bit this weekend. He opened at plus 10,000. Went down to plus 4,000. And after what we saw in practice, he went back up to plus 10,000. So not turning in the right direction there. And he wasn't that great last week. I know he finished well, but looking at the loop data statistics, he was barely a top 25 driver, if not worse. So I'm going to take a wait and see approach on Ty Gibbs. I think people will play him because of who he is at road courses, and he's in basically a JGR car, but I'm not a huge fan here.
It's one of these situations for me, and and kind of as we look ahead to what the future is here. Like, to me, I think these races are going to help decide whether Ty Gibbs is in this car in 2023.
Right. I mean, he definitely has a ride in a JGR car. We'll see how long it's going to take. I mean, once these guys like Truex or Kyle Busch, I mean, they're getting up there in age. At some point, they're going to get out of there. Denny Hamlin's getting old as well. So he's got a ride sitting for him. We'll see when it is. But after many years of experience and stuff, I mean, Ty Gibbs is definitely, I think, going to be one of the best drivers in the Cup Series when the time's right.
Now we have Eric Amarola, who is going to the rear. He qualified 14th, 6,900 on DraftKings, 4,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, he's basically free over on FanDuel, and I think that would have been kind of enticing before we got the news that he is dropping to the rear today. And normally I don't really care about that if you're like a non-dominator, but at a road course, we said track position has been king, and it's going to be tough to make up a lot of spots. And Amarola was kind of fast in practice, showed top 15 speeds, but losing that track position is probably going to kill his race. Could he fight back to a top 20, top 15? Sure, but we're going to need more than that in 14th. We're going to need a top 10 finish, and I don't really see that happening.
As Mike just threw it over there, Chad, little reminder, we're under 3 minutes from lock over on FanDuel, so get your FanDuel lives in there. Once we get some ownership, we'll let everyone know what the ownerships are over there on FanDuel. Brad Keselowski, he's starting 12th, 6,800 on DraftKings, and the same exact price on FanDuel.
Yeah, Brad Keselowski, I do like him quite a bit in tournaments, and the price point is pretty nice. Starting in 12th, he was fast in practice, and I like his RFK teammate Chris Buescher quite a bit, so I assume both are going to have speed here. P6 in the 1 lap, P2 in the 5 lap, and P3 in the 10. He's shown a decent top 10 upside at the road courses this year. So Kess is not a bad tournament play. I'd rather play Keselowski than Eric Jones today.
Kevin says, FanDuel last driver in. Who are you going with? 6,500 or under?
6,500 and under. Let me filter this to get the right. Okay, so we have drivers like Eric Jones, Austin Dillon, Haley. For me, it would probably be between Austin Dillon or Justin Haley. I feel like the finishing position upside is very similar on both, so I'll give the slight edge to Dillon because he starts about 12 spots further back.
Speaking of Austin Dillon, he's our next driver. He's starting 29, 6,700 on DraftKings, 6,200 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I like Dillon a lot today. I mean, back in the day, Dillon was awful at road courses, and he has definitely improved on that. And he wasn't bad in practice. He was P12 in the 1 lap and P10 in the 5 lap. And he also has finishes 11th and 10th this year at the road courses. Does have a 31st place finish, but that's because he had an incident at the end of the race and he just pulled off the track because his teammate Tyler Reddick was winning. And obviously didn't want to screw that up for him. And he's been a consistent top 15 contender at the road courses the past couple of seasons. So starting all the way back in 29th, he has speed in practice. It's not like he was slow and qualified. So like Eric Jones, he just happened to have a bad Q lap. So I think Dillon's a pretty solid play in all formats today.
Cole Custer is starting 24th today, 6,300 over on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Custer actually hasn't been bad at the road courses this year. I just wish he showed me more speed in practice. He was P27 hanging out with guys like Bubba Wallace and Ty Dillon. But, I mean, the drive rating looks good. Their average running positions are around 13th place at road courses. Starting in 24th, he's a decent pivot off of a guy like Stenhouse, but not my favorite. I just hate playing Cole Custer in general.
Justin Haley, he's starting 17th today, 6,200 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, so I made it a point. I could afford Stenhouse and Justin Haley in one of my tournament lineups, and I specifically went with Justin Haley to get off of that Stenhouse ownership. And I think the upside's there for him. He's had a couple decent finishes at road courses this year. He was top 10 in his practice speeds, 2 top 15 finishes of 12th and 15th, 24th at Road America, but starting in 17th, decent track position to work with. I don't think he's a bad pivot at all.
Yeah, you look at the comparisons between ownership on Justin Haley and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. We're going to talk about Ricky here now, who's starting 38, 6,100 on DraftKings, 5,200 on FanDuel. Justin Haley, we're projecting at 4% ownership, where Ricky Stenhouse is at 23%.
I would much rather get the Justin Haley there. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, the projection is not that far off. Like, yes, I know Stenhouse is a much higher floor starting in 38th, but you practice P32 if he finishes 28th. And if Justin Haley can get a 12th place finish, I'd rather be on the Justin Haley side of things, especially if you're over on FanDuel. So Stenhouse, yeah, if you're playing cash games, play Stenhouse because there's basically no downside there. But there's definitely reasons that want to get off of him in tournaments. I mean, he's not that great of a road course racer, slow in practice. I know he finished 19th at the last road course, and if he does that today, he's going to be in the optimal lineup. But I think he's going to be battling for a top 25 for most of the day.
Final driver in this tier is Ty Dillon, starting 30th, 6,000 on FanDuel, 4,000 or 6,000 on DraftKings, 4,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, again, it's kind of a pivot off of Ricky Stenhouse. He was a little bit faster in practice. And looking at the finishes for Ty Dillon on road courses this year, for his price point, they're actually not that bad. They're better than Stenhouse overall. 20th at Road America, 23rd at Sonoma, and 20th at Coda. If you're just trying to get off of that Stenhouse ownership, he's going to be lower owned. I feel like the upside's similar. So he's a decent tournament play, but I'm not going to go Ty Dillon in cash.
Yeah. By the way, we have reached locked over on the FanDuel side of the equation. So I'm just looking at some of my lineups. Ross Chastain, 39.5% owned in the big GPP over there.
I went 52%, so got some nice leverage.
Yeah. Trying to see who maybe are some other top. Chase Elliott, 37%.
Not as high on as Chastain. He's higher on than Kyle Larson, which is kind of surprising.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is 7%. Harvick, 27%. Blaney, almost 23%. Cindric, almost 20%.
Bowman's only 16% on FanDuel, which seems a bit low.
Yeah, just Martin Truex Jr., 24%. That's
about right, I think.
Look, some other ones here. Ty Dillon, 1.5%. If you went the Ty Dillon route. Eric Jones, we kind of talked about potentially being a trap play today, 13.7%.
It's kind of high on FanDuel, I think so.
I just found I'm just kind of going through people's lineups here. This is you want to talk about a weird lineup?
Let's hear it.
Ty Dillon, Eric Jones, Corey LaJoie, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Austin Dillon.
Well, I hope he is fine with losing all his money.
No, watch that end up being cash the lineup.
That's optimal. I'm not winning $1 today.
Of course, this is the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock show, and we are sponsored by Prize Picks. Of course, Prize Picks has their daily prop-based contest. So you can sign up by heading over to prizepicks.com, or you can download their app in the App Store. Of course, when you sign up, use that promo code AWESEMO, as I got an instant first match deposit up to $100. And looking at some of these props over there that Chris had mentioned that he likes here today. NASCAR points is back over here on Prize Picks. First off, Michael McDowell, 30.5.
Yeah, so for him to hit that, he's basically got to get a top 13, top 12 finish. You can get points for stage wins, but it's kind of hard to project for the most part. I wouldn't expect McDowell to get one anyway. But for Michael McDowell, top 12, top 13 finish, that's kind of been his bread and butter for the road courses so far this year. Pulling up his actual finishes, he's finished 8th, 3rd, and 13th. So he's basically hitting that just about every single time. So starting in 7th, he's got the track position to work with. I think he can hold his ground. If he does that, he's going to hit the over.
Also on the NASCAR points perspective, Kevin Harvick, if you got a little earlier, you got it at 27.5. It's now at 28.5.
Yeah, I still like the 28.5 number. I thought the 27.5 was way too low. That is a top 15 finish for Kevin Harvick. At the 3 road course races this year, he's finished 10th, 4th, and 11th. He's got top 15 speed in practice. At 28.5 now, I think we're talking about a top 14, top 13-ish, around that range. But that's still definitely doable for Harvick, so I still like the over.
Laps led, Tyler Reddick is now sitting at 19.5.
Yeah, we first got it at 22.5. I still think the 19.5 is doable. It is less appealing, but we're talking stage 1 being 15 laps. I don't think he's going to lead all 15 of those laps. And even then, there's no guarantee he gets back out front. So I think taking the under on that is probably a pretty good way to go.
Of course, be sure to check out Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Download their app in the App Store. And when you sign up, be sure to use that promo code AWESEMO. They got an instant first match deposit up to $100 when you use that promo code AWESEMO. During the show, you can always check out Bob's Twitter. And he tweeted this 7 minutes ago, still just 2 cars to the rear. Amarola for an engine change and Ware for repairs. Amarola felt an engine issue in practice, and the team checked after qualifying, and there was some engine damage. So a little note there if you're looking to maybe Eric Amarola there in terms of his car here today. So now let's look into the lower tier salary drivers. So these would be the drivers who are underneath $6,000 over on DraftKings. And since FanDuel was locked, not really a reason for us to talk FanDuel at this point anymore. Harrison Burton, 13th. 5,800 on DraftKings.
Yeah, Harrison Burton, while he didn't practice bad at all, he was P17 in the 1 lap, P12 in the 5 lap. He just happened to qualify too high. I cannot see him gaining spots in this race. Really only see him going backwards. I think he's going to finish right around 20th place. So for me, I just can't really get to him starting in 13th.
Joey Hand is starting 27th, and he's 5,700.
Yeah, Joey Hand I actually like. There's all the 5K plays are pretty bad today, but Hand's one I am getting to. I do worry about him being in a Rick Ware car. We've seen that earlier in the season where he was running very well and just kind of fell apart, but he was top 20 in practice. He's a good road course racer. Starting in 27th, I think he's got top 20 potential today.
Now, before I butcher this name, you know how to say the guy started 36 here?
I've heard someone told me it was Fiat. Someone told me it was Kvyat. I honestly don't care because I'm not playing him. But...
Okay, Kvyat, by looking at that makes sense.
Right. But I think what is it? Is it Russian? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All I know is he started 36 and he's 5,500.
Yeah, and he's not making my lineup. So I'll tell you that he is driving a lawnmower today. He's in a 26 car. It's a Toyota, and like I said, they just aren't fast. He was P37 in practice, I believe. I just can't see him doing anything.
You mentioned about Harrison Burton starting too high. That makes me think of Ty Gillen, who's starting 9th at 5,400.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a front row car, which is what Michael McDowell was in, but Michael McDowell's definitely got the better car between the two. He's the better driver. Gillen definitely outqualified where he's going to finish this race. And if you look at the odds in Vegas, it's definitely a lot better than all these other junkers in the back. But if Gillen's able to hold a top 10 today, I'd be very surprised because you got to keep in mind, you have guys like Larson, you have Ross Chastain, Suarez all moving through the field. So I cannot see him holding those guys off.
Corey LaJoie is starting 31st at 5,200.
Yeah, it's you think you'd have some appeal there, but he was P36 in practice and at the road courses this year, 34th, and 36th. He's cheap, yes, but he's cheap for a reason. I will not be playing him.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the rest of these drivers here, so you got Ware, Williams, Balicki, Helsmans. Williams is the only one getting any type of ownership, and that's only 5%.
And that's just because he's starting second to last, but he was the dead last car in practice. He's very slow. He's in a BJ McLeod car, which that's obviously pretty much the worst car each and every single weekend, if close to it at least. I'm not going to be playing any Williams. Yes, I know he's starting next to the last, but I basically would project him to finish there.
Of course, if you got any questions, be sure to line those up here in the YouTube chat. You can also line those up in our Discord chat as well if you're a Stokastic Plus member. And I'll mention the question that I kind of laughed about a little bit earlier in the show from Mr. Moneybags. F, marry, kill these 3 drivers for a DraftKings GPP single entry day: Chastain, Larson, and Dinger.
Oh, man. I would have to say F Chastain, marry Dinger. I don't want to kill Larson on his birthday, but there's like my 3 favorite driver. I'm gonna have to kill him. Unfortunately, it's just because I got to go with Ross between the two, and I love Dinger in the mid range. So Larson's just unfortunately getting the short end of the stick there.
My filler Arca with super chat, appreciate you. He says Hamlin or Briscoe or Byron as a last man in.
It's gonna have to be Byron for me. Hamlin, I'm not playing him today. Briscoe is not a bad play. I do worry about potential points racing there, but starting in third is just kind of a tough path for him being close to $9,000. So I'm going to have to go with Byron.
Yeah. Let's see here. Jake says Ty Gibbs breaking the slate today.
I hope not.
Is Stenhouse Jr. okay on the road course?
I guess okay is probably the right word for it. Looking at his finishes this year, 19th, 25th, 37th. Obviously, an issue where he finished 37th. He wasn't that bad, but he's typically a guy that can contend for a top 25. It's just he was slow in practice, but starting at 38th, it makes him play.
DK single entry is Chastain, Larson, Suarez. Too much left with 6 and 7K drivers.
I assume it means like just trying to jam those in. Is that too much? I would say,
Yeah.
I didn't do that in any of my 3 max builds. I'll plug them all in first really quick. So plugging that in, $6,666. You can make that work. If you happen to go Stenhouse and like a Justin Haley, you could still fit in a guy like a Chris Buescher. So it's not my favorite way to go roster construction wise, but it's doable.
Stenhouse or Amarola?
Stenhouse for me. Amarolla's going to the rear, so I'd rather just get the guy that's already in the rear being scored from the rear.
Will Joey Hand have a top 20 today?
I wouldn't project him for a top 20, but the upside is there. I'd say you can definitely get like a 23rd, 22nd.
Cameron says a couple of my cards have a little over 1,000 left on the table. Is that too much or a good way to be different? Cameron, I'm going to tell you something right now. I have a lineup where I left over 3,000 on the table.
And that's fine. I know Phil talked about it this weekend, but looking at the optimals this year, we've had 3 races. I believe one left 1,000 on the table, one left 39, then one left 1,400, I believe. So perfectly fine.
Yeah. I mean, look, in NASCAR, I'm always a believer in leaving my own table. I don't like to spend all my salary. I mean, there may be weeks where like maybe I have a couple hundred left over. I mean, obviously, if it's a super speedway, you just kind of know, leave as much money on the table as possible. But leaving $1,000, I think is no issue at all.
Yeah, I'm looking at the salaries right now, like because instead of playing Ellie, you could play Blaney, and I wouldn't say their projection should be too far off today, and that's saving like $1,400. So even then, that just leaves that much money on the table. So yeah, it's never a problem for NASCAR.
Can we play Josh Bilicki after finishing 22nd at Coda?
I'm not going to personally. I would say he's probably the best road racer to pick from of all the junker cars, but starting in 32nd, the upside's kind of limited. I don't think we're going to see a ton of wrecks today. If we do, maybe he ends up sneaking into being a viable play, but it's not something I would count on.
And it makes me think of the comment Alex Bowman made 2 weeks ago when he had to go to the rear, and he's like, unfortunately, now I'm racing with the I'm trying to remember the exact word he used. It was basically his way of saying, I'm trying to get past the junkers.
Right. Basically. Yeah. And that's the problem. I mean, you're going to be hanging out with guys like Ware, Bilicki, Williams. So not really something that's ever fun to do.
It's like, can we have a handshake deal that says, hey man, just let me pass you.
Right.
Y'all can do whatever. Just let me get past you.
Right. You would think.
Chance says 2v2. I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to go on this one, but it's Eric Jones and Ricky Stenhouse or Austin Dillon and Alex Bowman.
No, it's pretty easy. The second one. I mean, more speed there and just better drivers.
McDowell or Austin Dillon as a last man in.
Cash, I would say Dillon. If it's tournaments, I'd go with McDowell.
Which combo do you each prefer? Elliott and McDowell or Larson and Buescher?
Larson and Buescher for me, more P upside and similar finishing position upside as well.
Yeah, I think I'd probably be on the Larson Buescher. But then I think it depends on the contest you're playing in, though.
Yeah, because the other option was Chase and McDowell, correct?
Yeah, because I'm thinking about, okay, I mean, Michael McDowell's starting 7th. Okay, so he's up there. Larson and Buescher are going to be the more popular play. Mm-hmm. Like, if you tell me that's in a large field GPP,
yeah,
I might go the Elliott McDowell just to kind of get a little differentiate myself.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that at all. I mean, starting 8th and 7th, it's definitely going to be lower owned than starting 22nd and 16th today. And obviously, Elliott and McDowell have been great at the road courses this year. So it's basically an ownership game. Depends what contest you're in.
Like, I know there's a lot of people who tune into our shows that, they may be just a single bullet, maybe they throw 3, 4, 5 lines or playing 3 maxes. Like, the one thing, like in those type of contests, like if you're just like getting into the big GPP on DraftKings, this is what I would do is I'm trying to get just super unique. I mean, obviously there's going to be some chalk that I want to get to, but I'm going to take some big flyers.
Right. And that's totally, I mean, if you're doing a couple bullets in that kind of a contest, you're not going to win throwing a cash lineup in there. You got to get nuts. So it's
Oh
totally.
yeah. Yeah. Like I always say this, like, like, look, if you're trying to take down a big GPP and you're just, hey, I'm throwing in, $15 and this is my entertainment for the race.
Right.
Like, go crazy with your lineup.
Yep.
Like, just go crazy. Like, that's where, like, using ownership projections that we have over Stokastic.com are so beneficial for you, to where you could sit there and say, like say you want to get away from the chalk of Chastain and Larson. We know they're going to be chalk, I mean, you want to take a complete flyer. I know you're not big on Toyotas today.
Right.
Denny Hamlin 8%. So wait, I mean, just kind of using that as an example of how you can differentiate yourself from the field.
Yeah, for sure. I totally understand that. I mean, there's so many ways you have to go about it, and it all depends on what kind of contest you're in. And that's the most important thing in NASCAR. I mean, just checking ownership projections and trying to build your lineups in a way that you can get different from the field, but still build good lineups as well.
And I will tell you this, like, if you're just trying to build bankroll on NASCAR, do head-to-heads.
Yeah.
Just do a ton of head-to-heads, because you know what? Because the reality is, at head-to-heads, if all your drivers can stay clean, right, you just need one of their drivers to wreck out and finish 37th.
Right.
A couple weeks ago when Bowman wrecked out.
Right.
I had a couple of head-to-heads where I was going against Bowman. I was like, all right,
easy money.
You feel pretty good at that point.
Right.
Next up, Moneybag says Dinger versus Bowman for a DraftKings GPP single entry.
I'd have to go Dinger there. I mean, both two of the highest owned drivers on the slate, but I just think he's going to have more speed today. Obviously, great yesterday at the Indy Road Course, won here last year, and Dinger's just the road course ringer, really.
Of course, we want to see someone take down these contests here today, and we want to see you go into the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Of course, you got to be rocking that Stokastic avatar on your DFS profile. You can get that over at stokastic.com/avatar. And when you place in the top three in a contest with over 5,000 contestants, tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF. You win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Only one free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. Congratulations to Dan, who just went into the Stokastic Hall of Fame, as he won $30K over there on FanDuel playing MLB. Of course, you got to check out all the great MLB coverage we have. Of course, Chris is a part of our MLB coverage as well. Michael taking down $5,000 in a golf contest. Kudos to you. Logan, who I know is always in our Discord, he took down first place in a F1 contest. Bob taking down over $37,000 playing MLB. So kudos to everyone that has gone into the Stokastic Hall of Fame over the past couple of days. We'd love to see you go into the Stokastic Hall of Fame. As I thought I was going to go into a Stokastic Hall of Fame last night. But just did not happen for me. Did not happen for me. Of course, you got any questions? Got about 10 minutes here left in the show. So fire away with any questions you have. DraftKings single entry GPP, last spot in, Austin Dillon or Michael McDowell?
If it's a GPP, then I'd go with Michael McDowell there for the low ownership.
Is Dinger, Chastain, and Bowman very chalky? I know that Chastain and Bowman, because I know they're actually two of the drivers I have highlighted in terms of ownership. Almond Dinger, yeah, that's a chalky lineup.
It's about as chalky as it gets, really.
Like, look, if you were doing that in cash, okay, all right. GPPs, it might be a very duplicated lineup.
Yeah, if you're doing that in tournaments, you got to make sure you're not playing Stenhouse, Jones, those kind of guys. Try to get in like the McDowells, the Keselowskis, the Justin Haleys of the world.
DK Cash, McDowell or Austin Dillon?
It'll be Dillon for me.
7,000 left for DraftKings Cash. Which driver would we pick?
7K left, you said?
Yeah, 7K left. So that's what we're Ty Gibbs and under.
Yeah, I feel like I've said Austin Dillon a lot of times today, but the answer for me would be Austin Dillon.
Yeah. I mean, the Stenhouse, there's no going below him.
No.
I mean, he's at 38th. But wait, the thing with Stenhouse is, like, when I started doing some prep for this race and, seeing him starting 38th, one of the thoughts I did have is like, okay, so what is the finishing position ceiling for him?
So he was P32 in practice. He hasn't finished better than 19th at a road course this year. I personally gave him like a 26, 27 place finish, which even at his price point and where he's starting, it's not terrible. So if he happened to finish, let's say 27th today, he's getting you 26 points, which at $6,100, it's good. Is it optimal? Not totally sure. We'll have to see how everybody else scores, but it's not the worst day in the world.
Yeah.
If he cracks the top 20, we're talking 40 plus points today. So the floor is nice.
Bubba Wallace and Eric Amarola or Brad Keselowski.
I would never play Bubba at a road course. I would have to. He hasn't finished better than like 36 this year. It'll be Kes for me. I like the speedy shit.
AJ or Bowman on DraftKings GPP contest.
It'll be Allmendinger for me. If it's still tournaments, I'm still gonna go with Allmendinger.
Skylar says, so are we going to act like Kyle Busch might be sneaky?
I mean, is he sneaky? Sure, but he's also just been slow at the road courses. Hasn't finished better than 28th. Yeah, I know he's had a couple of issues, but I mean, the Toyotas just have had constant issues at the road courses this year. I don't really see why that's going to change much. Maybe they'll be a little faster, but enough to win? No, I don't think so.
Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. That does a great effort to help us out here at the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock Show. Of course, hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to Stokastic. We got shows for you each and every day. Of course, we got you covered for MLB coverage all week long. Of course, we got the NASCAR show here on Sundays. Also, we got the MMA show on Thursdays and on Saturdays. Jim says, would you play Martin Truex Jr.?
I'm only getting the Truex and 150 max builds, and I plan on being a little bit underweight on him. Like he was, I believe 23% owned on FanDuel. I came in around 15%. So similar kind of scenario over on DraftKings.
See here, GPP question: Suarez and Hand or Stenhouse and Cindric?
I'll still go the Suarez Hand route. Suarez just been so good at the road courses, and Hand, I mean, he's had speed at the road course. It's just one time he wrecked, but I still like him.
Why don't you like Chase Elliott today?
I hope I didn't give the impression I don't like Chase Elliott. I like him.
But I think what your point, was more about is, okay, he's starting 8th.
Right.
So, I mean, look, he very well could win this race, clearly.
Oh, yeah.
But I think would you say it's more about just where he's starting at than anything else?
Yeah, it's basically just because you have Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson right there. Like, I like Chase Elliott today. I don't think he's going to be bad. I just don't think he's going to score more than guys like Ross and Larson. So while other people got to 36% on FanDuel, I was more sitting in the mid-20s. Like, I don't dislike him. It's just I can't fit in all three of those guys in all my lineups.
Yeah, when you look at our projections on DraftKings for, say, Chastain and Elliott, we got Chastain scoring 12 more points.
Right. And I mean, their finishing position upside's been very similar road courses this year, and you're getting him starting 21st compared to 8th. And it's not like Elliott lit it up in practice or anything. Ross was actually, and Larson was faster than Elliott in practice.
Let's see here. McDowell or Keselowski, a last man in on draft on in a GPP?
Those are two of my favorite cheap tournament plays today. I'll still go with McDowell.
Steve, man, I love your comment. How many drivers need to be disqualified for Elliott to win again?
Yeah, everyone thinks they always gift Elliott wins. So last week was definitely not helping that theory.
Yeah. I just that's where you would be the fly on the wall when that whole comes down. They go, hey, Chase, I know we're getting ready to leave here, but hey, man, you won the race.
They said he was on the plane, so he didn't have internet. So when he landed, he found out he won. He had no idea for a couple hours, I think they said.
How does this plane not have internet? Right. It is 2022.
Yeah, NASCAR drivers, they're old school, I guess.
I mean, they're living this private plane life. I mean, you would think that we got internet on the private plane.
You'd think.
Blaney or Hamlin?
Blaney. I'll take the Ford over the Toyota all day here at the road course.
Haley or Ricky?
Tournaments, Haley, cash Ricky.
Hand with Burton or Gillen with Haley Stenhouse as the last two drivers GPP. So I'm guessing what he's saying is he already has Haley and Stenhouse.
I think that's what.
And then he wants to pair Hand with either Burton or Gillen.
That's a lot of cheap guys.
Yeah, that was literally my first thing I was thinking of. I was like, it's a lot of cheap guys.
I guess the hand combination. Yeah, but that's too many cheap guys in one lineup, I'd say.
Jones or Gibbs GPP?
I think this might be the first time I say Eric Jones today. I'll go with Jones.
Clay asks about two lower end drivers, Loris and also Kvyat. I probably butchered the hell out of that name. I would say I think you're dumpster diving too much.
Yeah, I think if you're at that point, you got to redo your lineup a little bit. Take a driver out, try to get some more salary because it's just the way for these guys to be optimal. There's so much that has to happen that I don't think is going to happen at a road course. So I'd really recommend just dropping off a driver or two and try to get closer to like a Stenhouse or something.
Busher or Harvick in cash?
Harvick starts 2 spots further back. He's been very good at the road courses. I'll take him.
How much Hesselman's is too much?
Probably 1%.
I was gonna say 2.
Yeah, 2%.
I mean, look, if you're playing a 150 max, okay, you want to get them in 2% of your laps, okay, all right, but let's not get crazy.
If you're playing anything under 150 laps and you have him in your lineup, I think you're doing something wrong. Would
you play Byron and Jones?
I'd play Byron. I mean, I have I don't have 0% Jones today, but it's still very underweight to the field. But I'd much rather play Byron.
McDowell or Busher?
Oh, it's tough because they're like the same exact play today. I have a slight lean towards Busher though, starting further back.
Is it smart to play McDowell and Busher together in a single entry?
I did that in a 3 max. I'm not sure if I do it in a single entry, but I'd be tempted to.
Yeah. Hesselman is really good at dodging wrecks, so he could be a sneaky top 20 guy. I mean, the question is will this be a wreck race?
I'm not sure how you can really classify anybody dodging wrecks good at that. I mean, he's finished 37th at Road America and 34th at COTA, so he's gonna have to do a better job at that anyway. Yeah,
I mean, and to give you an idea, literally there's 0 ownership coming in on him.
Right. I mean, you can't. No one's really good at dodging wrecks. You just got to get lucky.
Yeah, no question about it. Actually, just reminds me to go. Let me double check, make sure I did put my CSV in.
Yeah, 6 minutes.
I've done that. Yeah, I put mine in.
Good.
Okay. I just had to double check. Like, hey, I did put that in, right? Abraham, any news on Amaral? He's going to the back. They changed out his engine. Bob tweeted a little while ago the fact of he felt some issues after qualifying yesterday, so that's why he's going to the back of the pack.
And that does make him a pretty tough play today because losing that premium track position.
So let's see. By the way, still only Amarola and Ware going to the back. So the stages are 15, 20, and 47. Fuel 36 and 39 laps.
I will say Bob's been way off on these fuel mileage so far this year. So every time he says one, it's way off. So I'm not sure if I can trust him anymore.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we're getting to the point. I mean, like you've mentioned about Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr. of they may need to sell out for a win at some point.
Oh yeah. And
is there other drivers that are kind of like, in that group for you?
Not as much as Blaney and Truex because, I mean, they're just sitting fine on points. These other guys definitely need to win, but these are the 2 guys that they're in danger where they're sitting great in points. And the thing is, Blaney, the Fords have not been very fast at most tracks this year. So really the only place I could see him winning is another short track, but even then Toyota and Hendrick's been way better. And then really I could see him winning this race and then a super speedway. But outside of that, I think he's going to be in trouble.
Harvick and Busher or AJ and Bowman?
Tournaments, I would go with the first side. Second one, I'd go in cash.
Yeah. Let's see here. Just see if there's any other. Last man in, Custer and Haley or Stenhouse. So I'm guessing that's all 3 of those drivers.
Yeah, picking one soon.
I'm guessing you're eliminating Cole Custer right from the start.
Yeah, of course.
Then it's a Haley Stenhouse. For me, Brett, I would go Haley as a ownership.
Yeah, if it's tournament, I would definitely, like I said, I did this earlier. I had enough money for either of them, and I went Justin Haley. If it was cash, though, I'd go Stenhouse. Of
course, appreciate everyone tuning in here for the NASCAR Live Before Lock show here on Stokastic.com. Huge thanks to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Of course, be sure to check out them. If you sign up over at prizepicks.com, we use that promo code AWESOME. They got instant first match deposit of up to $100. So that's going to do it for us. Let's see someone take down these contests here today. Hopefully everyone has a great Sunday. We'll talk to you next week right here on the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock show. Have a good day, everybody.